Japan just had one of the biggest weeks in XRP history while everybody else was looking the other way, and I'm going to share about it. Two things happened in the same week for Japan, one at the highest level of the financial system, one at the most everyday consumer level that you can imagine. And together, they tell a story about what XRP is actually becoming that most people are not framing correctly. Now, I'm Camila Stevenson, and around here, we do talk wealth. This is not financial advice. Always do your own research. I am not telling you what to invest in, and I have to get that out the way. Also, like and subscribe if you have not already. Just look at the video and see if you're subscribed. I have some people who thought they were subscribed and they were not. So just hit that button if you're not. Also, drop in the comment right now before we get into this. Do you think most Americans understand how far ahead Japan is in this space? Let me know how you're looking at this. Now, let's get into it. So there was a conference in Tokyo on April the 7th, and it was called XRP Tokyo 2026. And I want to be clear about what kind of event this was, because this helps you to understand the data and what it means. So this was not a crypto conference where people get on a stage and talk about what could happen someday. The people in that room were from actual financial institutions and banks with compliance departments, with regulatory obligations, with legal teams that sign off on everything that gets presented publicly. And I need to say that so you can understand the context of this. They, in that meeting, presented live settlement data. This is real numbers from real payment corridors between real countries that have been running in production, not in a test environment or a pilot program, but in actual live operations, processing actual transactions with real money. And the numbers were this: cross-border payments settling 60% cheaper than SWIFT and completing in under 4 seconds. Now, I know those numbers get thrown around a lot in this space, so let me give you some full understanding of why this matters. SWIFT has been the backbone of international banking for over 5 decades. When a business in Japan needs to send money to a supplier in the Philippines, it goes through SWIFT. So there's multiple correspondent banks that touch that transaction along the way. Each one adds time, each one adds costs. The whole process can take anywhere from 1 business day to 5, depending on the corridor and the institutions involved. And by the time the money arrives, a meaningful percentage of it has been eaten up in fees at every stop along the chain. Now, what those Japanese banks showed is that you can take that entire process, the waiting, the intermediaries, the fees, and replace it with something that settles in the time it takes me to say this sentence at a fraction of the cost. SBI Holdings has been doing this since 2021. So this isn't something new. They are not testing this. They're really actually doing this, right? They're running live remittances on XRP rails, starting with the Japan to Philippines corridor and expanding from there. What got shown at the Tokyo conference was not a proof of concept. It was years of operational data from a system that has been working in production the whole time people were debating whether it ever would. And at the same event, Ripple added 12 new currency pairs. That's 12 new corridors where this same infrastructure now operates. These are 12 new routes that institutions can use to move money faster and cheaper than anything the traditional system offers. The thing I keep coming back to with this is how it answers the question that skeptics have been asking for years, which is, show me a real bank, show me real money, show me real numbers with real transactions. Well, Japan showed them for sure on April the 7th in front of a room full of financial professionals who would have immediately recognized fabricated data. These institutions have too much to lose to put fraudulent settlement numbers on a conference stage. The institutional proof of concept question is now answered. But here's where I find this even more interesting about what happened in this time frame, because the Tokyo conference was about banks and settlement corridors and institutional infrastructure, the kind of thing that will matter in a huge way, but that most regular people will never directly interact with, okay, because these are institutions. So, what happened later that same week was something that 44 million regular people are going to interact with starting right now. And so I want to talk about what Rakuten did. Let me tell you about this if you don't understand it, because if you're not familiar with it, the scale of what just happened doesn't fully help you to comprehend where this is actually going. Now, Rakuten is Japan's version of Amazon, but that comparison only gets you part way there, because Rakuten is not just a place that people shop online, it's a bank. It's a travel booking platform. It's a mobile carrier. It's a streaming service. It's an insurance provider. All of it is connected under one roof through a single loyalty program that Japanese consumers use across every category of their daily spending. Every purchase earns points, every flight, every grocery run with the Rakuten card, every subscription, and those points accumulate and people spend them on the next purchase. So it's woven into everyday life in Japan, the way credit card rewards are woven into everyday life of America, except more deeply integrated because it touches more categories. So right now, there are over 3 trillion points sitting on Rakuten wallets across Japan. That is 3 trillion that converts to roughly 23 billion worth of purchasing power sitting in a loyalty program. So what started back on April the 15th was that those points can be converted directly into XRP. And then that XRP can now be spent immediately at over 5 million merchants through Rakuten Pay. So these are not held waiting for a price move or traded on exchanges. They are spent on the same groceries, clothing, electronics, and everyday purchases that those 44 million users were already making before any of this even happened. So here's why this is different from every other crypto payment story that you've heard in the past. Well, most of those stories require behavior change. So someone has to decide to use crypto instead of their normal payment method. So they have to go through extra steps and set up something and explain it to the cashier and deal with volatility and uncertainty. So most people never bother because the existing system is easier. And most people are just on autopilot. So they do exactly what they did the day before. Well, Rakuten does not ask anyone to change their behavior. The 44 million people using Rakuten Pay are already using it. They already earn points. They were already spending through the app on things that they were already going to buy. And so XRP just became an option inside of a flow that was already happening, if you understand what I'm saying. And that means the infrastructure was already in place, right? And the habit was already there. The only thing that changed was that one of the assets available inside that existing infrastructure is now XRP. And that is a fundamentally different kind of adoption. Not people choosing crypto over their normal payment method, but people choosing XRP because it is the most convenient option inside something